Before I start,
I'm an addict. My name's Bob.
I asked Bob to do that so I wouldn't feel alone up here. Never alone. The topic is recovery-based service, and I can remember when I first got started in recovery, this whole thing of going to some place every night where a bunch of people were hanging out and going through this recovery stuff, I felt like was something that was available for me, and I didn't know what my part in it was and what I was supposed to be doing. The very first meeting I ever went to, somebody handed me something to read, and I read it quietly to myself. I had no idea that I was going to be asked to actually, read it out loud in front of everybody. I saw that there were people who were getting things done, and I wanted them to like me, but I didn't necessarily, see myself doing what they were doing. Didn't necessarily see myself getting into this thing that way. Being new, I think that was the right way to look at things. It was, now I understand the newcomer's the most important person. That it kind of was my job to heal for a while, to, kind of convalesce for a while. To me, this isn't like a disease, this is a disease. The recovery process isn't unique to recovery from addiction. The recovery process is a principle of healing and getting back into life. And that's true from anything. There's some downtime after you've been sick. I can't choose whether or not that's necessary. It just happens, But after the downtime, there's time to, get out of bed and, get busy. How I go about that can make me sick again. And for me, that's what the 12th step is all about, is getting back into life. The first 11, step 12 starts with having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the previous steps. The 12th step is about, to me, in great deal to me, about service, recovery-based service. The 11 steps before that have a lot more to do for me with the healing aspect. Through recovery-based service, I got over being, hooked on my disease, hooked on, recovery, hooked on a fellowship of people, and started to learn how to get the focus off of me and onto being part of something larger than myself, learning how to reintegrate into society. It's like, it's real easy to just come in here and hide in here and have this be our whole lives. Recovery-based service for me is learning how to be part of a family again. It's learning how to get along with people at work. And it started with learning how to be part of a Narcotics Anonymous group. It started with learning, that I'm one codependent person, and learning how to get along with people and trying to achieve a purpose, a common purpose. Even, being conscious that there is a purpose, learning to ask myself, what are we here for? There's been a lot of times at work, there's been a lot of times, just when, going home, to get something done rather than just to visit, that I've spent all my time visiting and didn't get the family project done that I had in mind. You know, I've looked at my service and realized that a lot of what's helped me overcome that is learning how to overcome those same things in service. Recovery-based service, the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message and practice these principles in all our affairs. For me, that goes on into the traditions and now into the concepts as well as we learn more about those. Having a sense of my purpose as part of a group. I've learned that I have to have boundaries with people, or that I do have boundaries. I just have to recognize what they are. What are my comfort zones? When am I, letting people get in beyond where I'm close, getting close beyond where I'm comfortable? I need to learn, to be open with people and let people be part of my life. Service definitely throws me in with other people working together. I've learned that I've got to have some boundaries with that. Yes, I need to let you in. At the same time, I don't need to walk around naked. There are, like I said, there's a lot of codependent issues. There's a lot of control issues. When I have learned more how to get along with a bunch of control freak addicts like myself, I have a lot less conflict with people at work. When I have done service for fellowship rather than recovery, fellowship is a good thing. Sponsorship is a good thing. Service is a good thing. Any one of these to the exclusion of the others, any one of these things too much of a good thing, any one of these things to an extreme can be a bad thing. All service without fellowship, not a good thing. Doing service all for the point of fellowship rather than for recovery, where I'm doing it just for prestige in the program. I really thought, at times that, I really looked up to people in service and based on what position they were elected into, and it's like, wow, that's impressive. What I didn't see was all the shit that person was getting because of everybody having an opinion on how they should be doing their responsibility different, until I got into a service position, a title, and I realize now that it's not the title that makes somebody special; it's the experience of the opportunity to serve. All the mistakes that come with that, and all the learning lessons that come with that, and all the opportunity to work with others. Another real common pitfall I've had is being of service alone. It's really easy for us to want to get something done and be of service and do good as a lone ranger. Picking our own little pet projects. Well, this meeting over here is suffering, and that meeting over there is suffering, that meeting over there is suffering. So let's take the three of us and never talk, and let's go split up. And I'm going to do my meeting, and if you have any suggestions on it, you're not minding your own business. And basically, when I'm divided from others in service, I can do good things, but not necessarily in a good way. I need other. One of the things, the primary things about what it means to me to be an addict is that I'm always in denial. It's not that sometimes I'm in denial. It's something I just have. I have denial. I have some perceptions that are a lot better today than they used to be. But one of the things that keeps them clear is that I try to be approachable. I try to let you have a perspective on my life that I'm not painting to be different than it is, that's really, really hard. But it's really easy to hide from people so they can't see. It's really easy to not get people involved with the things I'm being of service to do. I try and find partners in recovery, people to work with, so I'm not doing something alone. And that's where the rest of the traditions come in, so we don't kill each other. I've heard it said that recovery, the steps are so we don't commit suicide, and the traditions are so we don't commit homicide. The first one for me, really, at one time it meant, that because my recovery, personal recovery depends on any unity. My recovery is based on a bunch of incompetent, petty control freaks. I'm screwed. That's what the first tradition meant to me. In philosophy, it didn't, but I knew I can. But looking into the fear in my heart and the way I'd react to certain situations and certain controversies and dramas, I could see that that's how, in my heart, I was really reacting to the first tradition. That it meant that because you're causing disunity, my recovery is endangered and threatened, and because you're not living up to your responsibilities for doing recovery-based service, because you're taken and you're not given, that the future of NA was at stake, that it was not going to be what it could be, and therefore my recovery was going to be diminished because it was dependent on that. Well, now I realize that what it basically means is that there's always going to be no new folk coming in. There's always people going to be learning through their mistakes. There's always going to be disunity. It's not going away. We don't have traditions because everyth's perfect. We wouldn't need any of the steps either if things were perfect. We have those guidelines and those principles because there's always going to be things to apply them to, and that's going to be okay. It's not that God's will prevail one day. God's will is prevailing right now. It's all right. Things are going to be fine. The real point is all about me in those traditions. My role in the group. The first tradition meaning, first off, what am I doing to focus on the problem beyond what's needed to identify it? What am I doing to obsess over the problem and stir up disunity? And what am I doing to just get in there and be part of? The second one for me is about, contributing my perspective and then letting it go and following what the group decides. Control-based service for me is it's really easy to violate that second tradition when I know better in this instance. To me, any issue really doesn't matter too much how it turns out, because in the long run, we'll figure it out. In the short run, it's a lot more important how we make that decision, and that is together as a group conscious. That I won't follow the group doing something, decision that's decided something really immoral. But I will at least not, I won't do something they told me not to do, or at least that's what I try and practice anyway. Third means that I can't, it's not about, hey, it's for those who want it, not those who need it, and forget about anybody who doesn't do it my way. The third tradition, about desire, membership, is based on somebody else's desire, means I do have to let it go when I'm doing that service at the level of one addict helping another, sponsorship, home group member, and somebody's just not answering the phone. Somebody's just really responding in fear and anger every time I see them. I do have to let it go for my own protection. But when somebody's really doing things in service that to me I want to dismiss as they're not doing this for true motives, pure service motives. I cannot gauge another person's degree of desire. Again, it's not about them. It's about me and how I can follow this tradition, not how I can get you to follow it. So the third tradition relieves me of the burden of having to decide, how sincere somebody is. Fourth one, what's that? Autonomy. Gosh, well, that's a really big one. I've seen a lot of controversy over autonomy. To me, it says in the basic text that that autonomy means that each group is self-governing, and that means to me from each other. The last paragraph in the basic text talking about autonomy talks about how we got to be real careful about a bunch of groups trying to force any other group or groups into doing things a particular way. There's a lot of times when I've been to different places and I've heard the Lord's Prayer in a meeting or some other religion-specific language being used, or stuff that had to do with politics, political issues that were currently going on, things like that. Which, as just an NA member, I spoke up, but I did not follow my desire to go in there and say, "Oh my God, don't you know how bad you're breaking the traditions?" Because again, that throws off recovery-based service into control-based service. Anything that rocks my faith. It's okay for me to be upset. It's okay for me to be scared, but for me to run with that messes me up real bad. 5, primary purpose. Like I said, when I'm doing anything with any group of people, it's really easy to get diverted off the main reason we're together. It's like we're here to get a job done. And there's times when I have been so diverted by fun that I haven't had it be based on recovery. I like pleasure. I like being stimulated. But as an addict, that can get out of hand really quick for me. What I really need is joy. I need something that lasts beyond the 2 a.m, too much caffeine, too much foul language, or even without foul language, without doing anything that violates my ethics or morals or standards in any way. I can completely waste my time without getting some recovery in there. I'm in school again still, and was doing a group project recently where we had really a very hard time scheduling it because of everybody's schedules conflicting. We got together for an hour and we didn't even at one point work on the project that we had assigned. Primary purpose helps keep me focused. I can take that to an extreme to where I'm so much about getting the business done that I'm not really focused on learning. To me, the primary purpose is the broader sense, carrying the message. It's not about, okay, what color should the T-shirts be? Who cares? When I can care too damn much over little details. What I find is that when I focus on recovery, that, okay, here's the excuse to get together, picking the color for the T-shirts. Now, the purpose is for my recovery. So let's discuss the principles here. Let's philosophize a bit here. Let's talk about the feelings and things like that. And next thing you know, we've picked some T-shirt thing. When I go through an agenda, boom, 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 I can feel great, like we've accomplished something. We've met for our business-like purpose. And when I look at the product of all those service man hours, see squat, except maybe a meeting directory or two or something. I really want to look at how much learning and growing is coming out of a service situation, and how much actual value to people not in the room is happening. How much is really hitting besides my prestige and my getting off on something. I don't know if I got time to get through the other ones. I wasn't watching when we started.
I know.
I got some time. Yeah, can you give me like a 2-minute heads up? Cool. So 6, opinion on outside issues, I think is what that one is. Maybe that's 10, I don't know. I definitely, that ties right into purpose, primary purpose. Getting into controversies is another way for me to get diverted. Where I see one of the big pitfalls with this is it used to be with my attitudes and relationship towards other recovery programs. I used to be a table banger in a different one, and then I was a table banger in this one, and I would really let that prevent me from being open to the experience that others who have, our predecessors, doing something not exactly this way, but very, very darn similar to it. I was focusing on the differences instead of the similarities. 7, self-support. I can't tell you how many Xerox copies I have made of NA flyers on business machines. That's flat out stealing. Stealing with intent to make amends, perhaps, but that's what it is. 8. What's that? Non-professional. Guess what? To me, non-professional means that in my personal recovery, in a sense, when I've got a problem with my car, I take it to the mechanic, so to speak. When I got a problem with my body, I take it to the doctor. But it also means that I don't bring my profession into NA service too far. Now, I can bring my professional growth and perspective, and NA is a melting pot of life on life's terms experiences, real life experiences. But I do not offer my professional services to Narcotics Anonymous. There's a reason that we hire outside professional help. It's because, it's the same reason of everything. It don't matter what makes sense. It matters what our experience has been. In the past, as far as I understand it, very often, maybe every time, somebody has offered professional services. Because they happen to be a certain, if you're, say you're working on a committee that's trying to get, some legal stuff dealt with, and you happen to be a lawyer. Hey, I know how to handle this one. I'll do it myself. Instantly, I just lost all objectivity. Is my guess why it goes awry? Same way that. I see, when nurses or doctors treat family, they either over-diagnose something, they see things that aren't there, or somebody ends up dying of cancer because they didn't want to see it. Or maybe it's because all of a sudden our anonymity is broken. Maybe it's because as soon as we've gone from addict to addict lawyer, there's more controversy there. There's, all of a sudden, there's prestige. People are starting to let us have our way. With the addict decisions, with the service decisions. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that can make sense. The main issue is, what does our experience reflect? These traditions came from somewhere. Where was I? No comment, please. No full face photographs. I guess I don't have a lot to say on that one, but 12 I do. Just that anonymity used to mean to me what you hear here, what's said here stays here. Respecting confidentiality. Confidentiality is something that's extremely important to me, but it's a whole separate issue. To me, anonymity means kind of along the lines with the third tradition being, I can't decide who deserves to be here and who doesn't, who's sincere about being here and who doesn't. The 12th tradition means that, to me, that I can't decide whose experience is more valuable. I have lived 34 some years, so other people have lived 20. They lived 20 different years than I have. I have lived the amount of time clean I've got, and somebody with 30 days has lived a different 30 days in a different area. The main thing for me is that the disease doesn't care if we're a lawyer or a ditch digger, black, white, male, or female. It'll take any one of us back at any time. It doesn't discriminate. It don't care, I have to be really careful about putting people up on pedestals, putting people into pits. Anonymity means that as hard as I try, I cannot truly be more special than you. As hard as somebody else tries, and as much as they may get a cult of personality wrapped around them, that doesn't mean that I have to feel inferior, respond in fear, and start competing. It's okay. It's okay. And to some extent, though, it's principles before personalities, not principles without personalities. When there's circumstances going on in somebody's life that means that a responsibility, even if they want to keep it, is an undue burden upon them and puts the subcommittee or group at risk, guess what? It's using them to keep them in it. So that's really hard for me. I don't like that. But, that's life on life's terms. I just wanted to plug once again that for me these traditions have a bigger impact on my recovery today than the steps do. I'm going to make a big deal out of something when I'd much rather, wherever the big deal in my life is, that's where my drama is. I'd rather have the big deal be on the traditions and how I'm getting along working with others in NA, how I'm reintegrating into my family, and things like that, than have the drama be in the steps, which my life really depends on. When I focus on the traditions, my step work just kind of rolls right along. It's not such a struggle over these issues. I can share my pain and share my fears, because that's not what I'm trying to control. What I'm kind of trying to control are these group issues, So I'm really grateful that we have some place to go in 12. That we don't just have to substitute our drugs for service. That's all I got. Thanks, family.
Thanks, David. I'm an addict named Bob. Grateful to be here today and want to thank the programming committee for inviting me to have the opportunity to share. The topic, recovery-based service. My perception is that topic is offered as a counterpoint to what many people complain about being people who have service-based recovery. And it is my firm belief that the addicts in our fellowship who invented the phrase service-based recovery are the addicts who are content to sit back and let other people make sure that this fellowship continues to exist for the addict who still suffers. I do not believe that there is such a thing as recovery-based service or service-based recovery. What I'd like to look at today is our symbol. And I believe there's a reason why the symbol is at the beginning of our basic text, because it spells out what Recovery and Narcotics Anonymous is about. And there are 4 sides to our symbol: God, self, society, and service. And what that tells me right off the bat, before I even dig into what Recovery and Narcotics Anonymous is about, is that service makes up 25% of my recovery. And my understanding of Recovery and Narcotics Anonymous is that I do not have Recovery and Narcotics Anonymous without service. And the first thing I need to do is come up with a definition of what service is. And my personal definition of service to Narcotics Anonymous has nothing to do with being a GSR or a regional delegate or an ASR or a subcommittee chairperson. Service is about doing something and not expecting anything in return. And our dedication to service talks about the fact that any efforts in Narcotics Anonymous service need to be specifically directed at carrying the message to the addict who still suffers. That's all it is. There are as many ways to carry that message as there are people in our fellowship. And going back to our symbol, I find recovery through our steps and our traditions. The God portion of our symbol, being an addict, the way that I have found some faith and some hope in a relationship with the higher power has been through our steps. The way I have learned about myself and how to take care of myself has been through our steps. The way I have become a responsible, productive member of society is through our steps and our traditions. And service is an expression of my gratitude for getting the other three parts of that symbol in my life. And service to our fellowship is where I learned, and the addict who shared before me covered this, so I won't belabor the point, but service in Narcotics Anonymous is where I learned how to behave myself. It's where I learned to keep commitments. It's where I learned to tell the truth. It's where I learned how ugly my need to control things really is, and where I continue to relearn that over and over and over again. And it's where I learned that I have something to offer. It's where I began to get some faith in myself and my abilities that I have been able to carry out a lot farther than just our fellowship. And today's topic was not recovery-based Narcotics Anonymous service. It's recovery-based service. And I took from my community for a long, long time. I don't believe that service in Narcotics Anonymous is the only way that I can give back to my community. And I've had the privilege over time in this fellowship to be involved in some other things, outside of just service for the fellowship. What I know about service today is that it is 1/4 of my recovery. It's not all of my recovery. I learned some little key ideas to keep me centered in recovery when I first got started. My first significant exposure to service in this fellowship was through our Hospitals and Institutions subcommittee, in learning to carry the message to addicts who don't have exposure to our fellowship and meetings. And what I was told as I began to get involved with H&I is that you don't have anything to give away if you don't have anything. And that while there may be 14 H&I meetings a week in my area that desperately need some help, and some of them may fold because nobody is willing to go there and share, you can't do it all yourself. I was told by an addict who would do well to remember what he told me that for every H&I meeting that I do, I better be going to 2 recovery meetings. And, you know, I carry that into my service efforts as well. When this region offered me the privilege of representing y'all at the World Service Conference a few years ago, you know, I asked some addicts. I know a lot of addicts who went to the World Service Conference and came back bitter, cynical, and left our fellowship. And I did not want that to happen. And I asked some addicts who had been to the conference and come back from it enriched and enthusiastic for recovery and growth in Narcotics Anonymous what they did. And they said, you're going to have 13 to 16 hour days where you're going to be listening to people argue with each other and seeing the ugly part of people's personalities. But every morning at 7 o'clock out by the pool, there's a recovery meeting. You better have your ass there. And, you know, that's where I got to see the human side and the recovering side of a lot of people that I saw behaving very badly later on during the day. And, you know, my perspective was enriched by that. And that's the way I got to carry myself. If I'm going to do service, I better be working steps. If I'm going to be doing service, I better be talking about how I feel, and I better be cultivating a relationship with the higher power. Because when it's Bob in the service arena on his own, there is nothing but my higher power that's going to keep me from being controlling and saying hurtful and cruel things to make my point. And you know, the other thing I got to share is that the people in Narcotics Anonymous who have something in their recovery that I want for myself, from the day I walked through these doors till now, are involved in service to this fellowship in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean I like them. That doesn't mean that I believe in their methods. There are addicts in this room who I have served with over the years who we don't share the same perspective on how service in Narcotics Anonymous should work.
I disagree.
Of course you do. But I have no doubt that the motives of any of those people or myself are about helping our fellowship flourish and grow. And I have learned the hard way that my perspective on how things should be done is not necessarily really recovery based. And that's why I got to be talking about it and sharing about it. Service is an expression of gratitude. I can never get back. I can never give back what I have received from this fellowship. And the minute I stop trying to give back to this fellowship through my service efforts, whatever they may be, then I don't get it anymore. I don't understand why I'm here, because service is the antidote to my self-centeredness. Yep. And I really believe that the important service starts with being a responsible home group member. It starts and ends with being a responsible home group member. Yep. The important service is not the person who is the committee chairperson. The important service is somebody who sticks around and helps the secretary of the home group put up chairs while everybody else is outside smoking. You know, and make sure that when everybody else goes out to eat, that secretary isn't down there in the kitchen putting things up and gets outdoors and wonders what happened to everybody. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of people sitting in this room have experienced that at one time or another. Service is doing the H&I meeting at the low budget detox instead of going into the penitentiary where all the glamour is. Service is doing the H&I meeting where the need is as opposed to the meeting that we want to go to. And, that's something that I've had to get with personally. I coordinated a meeting for 4 years because it was really early on Friday and I could get home at a decent hour. And the meeting that needs my help doesn't get done till 9:45 at night, if that. And, enough people have said, we really need another panel leader at this meeting. You say you want to do something, it's time to step up to the plate. And now when it's summer and I really would like to get home at a decent hour, I'm probably going to have to suck it up and do that. I think I'm going to start talking in circles, so I'm going to close here pretty soon. But I can't stress enough how much that I believe that service is an integral part of my recovery. It is certainly not recovery in and of itself, but without it, I don't believe that I have recovery. And again, I'm really grateful to be here. I think that's all I have. Thanks, Bob.
Before we open the floor for sharing, I need to remind everyone that you are being taped. If you wish not to be taped, please let us know for that the tape can be turned off. Anybody got the wellness? Come on.
All right.
I'm an addict called Derek.
Hi, Derek.
I'd like to thank Bob and Dave for coming and sharing. They've got about 30 years clean and 45 years of service between them.
Oh,
I got clean back in 1987 and didn't last here very long, but I got involved in service right away because I wanted to be popular and I wanted people to know who I was, and I carried my using ethic right into the fellowship, and that improper motivation led me right back out. And then when I got clean this time, back in 95, I needed to prove to myself that I could take a service position and fulfill it. And so that's what I did, And I was talking to a man who was very instrumental in my early spiritual growth, who asked me why I was involved with service and explained to me what the spiritual principle of anonymity meant, because I thought it meant just being nameless. And he explained to me that no, it's about doing the right thing for the right reason. It's about, like Bob said and Dave shared, about giving back because we can, because it's the right thing to do. And it took me probably about 9 months before I fully understood that, or fully began to understand that, and have applied that ethic to my service since then. And I've always had a service position of one sort or another, and there's a couple of things that I just wanted to share, and one is that today I don't believe that I can fully give to this fellowship if I'm doing more than one titled service position at a time, and so I've learned how to just say no, because I've had as many as 4 service positions at a time, and it's not fair to me and it's not fair to the fellowship. So it's my suggestion through my experience that if you're going to do something, do one thing very well. The other thing that I learned, and it's the result of having had the opportunity to go out to the World Service Conference with Bob and learn about that aspect of service, that people who serve on any level
may have personalities and agendas and egos and things like that, but what I learned was that they love this fellowship, and that's why they serve it. And whether I agree with them or not, because Bob and I have argued on the conference floor together, but it's because we both love this fellowship, and we want what's best for this fellowship, and we want to participate in being able to carry the message to the addict who still suffers, and that's the bottom line. When Narcotics Anonymous became Narcotics Anonymous World Services instead of the WSO, and we consolidated the fellowship, so to speak, one of the most important things that I heard then was the mission statement, that no addict seeking recovery need ever die from the horrors of addiction. That's why we're here, and that's why I serve today, because I know that somewhere out there's an addict who just wants to be made to feel welcome here, you know. And you don't have to do that by being the life of the party like I was before I got here. You know, I can do that and maybe nobody even know who I am, but here and willing to serve. Thanks.
Hi, I'm an addict named Chris. And I would like to thank the two addicts who just spoke for shedding some new light onto service as a whole, and I love it, those philosophical aspects of it, and they have a lot of experience in what they laid out there. That no addict does not have to die. Any addict seeking recovery should never have to die from the horrors of addiction. And when we had at the convention, our state convention, which I was involved with in hotels and hospitality, we had that on our Jimmy Kay's statement there, and I showed that to my mother, and as I was giving it to her, it was for the first time in my recovery. It really, really hit me, and tears kind of welled up in my eyes, and naturally I fought them back because I wanted to be a man in front of Mom, and I said, I want you to keep this bookmark because this is why I do service. And this is like Derek just related, you know, that there's perhaps one person, you know, out of many. I do H&I, and H&I has been my outlet for service, my main outlet for service. And sometimes, and for many of you who do that, we go through many, many people, and just to see someone come up at a convention and say that we heard you here and give you that hug, that 1 out of 500 or 1,000 or whatever it may be. Odds are actually, it's actually more than that, but it gives a feeling like I've never had before. And I guess the other comment I wanted to make that kind of burns me up, because a lot of people that, I got to be careful here, but I'll try to do it. I really get my guard up when I hear the service bashers out there in the fellowship. And oftentimes it's addicts who aren't doing a whole lot to keep this fellowship going. And the only reason Chris sits here in this chair is because some 50 years ago, a group of addicts came together and got the ball rolling. Yeah. And the chain reaction, which I'm a very small part of, I would like to keep this going. And this will not survive unless people are doing service work. And as Derek mentioned, I can second guess them, I can get judgments about them, but when you really get down with the people when you talk with and share quality time with people who are in service, you see at one day, maybe it's later than sooner, but you'll see that burning desire and that passion for helping others. You'll find it in their own way. And if you're going to If you're going to knock service, I mean, I guess in some positions, what I'm saying is that we so desperately need service in so many areas where there just isn't a lot of willingness. And it shocks me, actually. It's kind of surprising, but, you know, that's my problem here. And I guess I'll close by saying that thank you again for shedding a lot of insight into some things about service. And number two, what an incredible feeling when an addict told me that, Chris, you will not believe what's going to happen to you when you start getting involved in service. I said, yeah, what's he talking about? You know, that's no big deal. But, you know, wow, the glow and the by getting so much back in return, by giving just a little bit, and what that has done for my life and to keep things going has just been phenomenal. And it keeps the recovery going. And that's all I have to share. Thanks.
I'm an addict. My name is Robert. Service. Now, I was just sitting there listening and identifying that doing service work for me has really enhanced my spiritual growth. A lot more tolerance that I have today. You know, I think about that area service meeting, being the co-chair, being the chair, all the chaos and confusion, you know, the arguing, the personalities. You know, it really used to upset me when I first started. But then after being there for a while, I had to learn that that's what happens, you know. You get all those different personalities together. And I also looked at the end of the meeting, we got business taken care of. Everything came together. We hugged in a circle. We said the serenity prayer, and we handled our business. You know, but, you know, it was just a growing process that I had to go through. You know, I remember at my home group, you know, putting up the cheers and wanting somebody to see me do that, you know. I said, I'm not going to put the chairs up. Let me wait until somebody sees me put these chairs up. But no, it's not important now. What's important is that I do the right thing for the right reason. And I also heard that I could never repay what I got today, you know, but I tried by doing service work, getting outside myself, and dealing with people and understanding that I'm not going to understand everybody's not going to understand me. But as a fellowship, we need to connect and get together and take care of our business, because it's about the people, the suffering addict out there, you know, carrying the message, doing our activities and dances, and, you know, just bringing people in and you know. So I wasn't going to get up here, but, you know, it just struck me, and then my sponsor coached me up here. But it's important. It's important. Service has been a great part of my recovery, you know, and I love it. I love it today. I'm prayed up when I go to the area service meeting, though. I have to be prayed up because I know what I got coming, you know. But like I say, the bottom line is we take care of our business. We hug and carry on. But and another thing that I can't stress enough is that what this fellowship has given me, you know, how dare I not give back? How dare I not give back? Thanks, Mr. Chair.
My name's Ryan. I'm an addict. Thank you, gentlemen. Today I'm extremely grateful for the group of trusting people who let me come in and make coffee, and then who gave me a title so that I could go do service for all the wrong reasons. And as I started building titles, after a couple of days, somebody asked me, do I have recovery-based service or service-based recovery? And I didn't know the difference, didn't have a clue. But it dawned on me that while I was making coffee and setting up chairs and holding the key, and that everybody and taking the money and getting to look like I was all that it really didn't matter. That I got to experience that and grow through that, so that today it's more important to me to make coffee because I'll get an opportunity to talk to a newcomer and give them a hug. Recovery-based service is important, but without service-based recovery, I don't think I ever could have grown to that point anyway. And I wouldn't have known that it all starts at the home group. That it all starts at the meeting, giving a newcomer a hug. And that to me, that's where it really matters. That's all I got.
My name Robert O'Malley. Hey, Robert.
Hi, Robert.
I'm truly glad to be here. I was just sitting there thinking about different levels of recovery, and you know, I've always been on the lower part of service, and I think that's where my niche is at, is to help people, the underdogs and people like that. And somebody mentioned home group, I think he did, but I've been at my home group for over 11 years. I haven't ever changed home group. And some parts of me say I need to move on, but until they tired of me, I'm gonna stay there. And I'm diligent there every Sunday at my home group. And one of the things I've learned is that, you know, a lot of times for the newer member, they don't understand our language when they get here. But what they do understand is a loving hug. Because when I was new, if I wanted anything more, was for somebody to care about me. So I didn't know nothing else. I just needed to be cared for, to get me out of the fright of being in a new atmosphere of people. So that's where my heart is at, really. And I've been scoping out people that look like they're frightened since they've been here, you know, and trying to allow myself some service or a moment, to spend a moment. You can see the fear in some people's eyes around here when you look. And we need not to neglect that or pass that up, because, you know, they ain't come this far and have all that fear and not want to be careful. So you might not even know what your purpose is to be here today, or even this weekend. But just try to be mindful of that. You know, there's some newcomers here this weekend right now that's really afraid. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say, you know. And they need that. They need to take that back. Wherever they're going, they need to take that love back, you know. And I think that's the biggest thing is being here right now. We all come up here to get some more love to take back with us, you know. So, and if you don't think that's service too, you know. That's service in a loving way too. So that's where my heart is at, you know. I know I can't do no more than that. I can do that, you know. I was listening to a lady speak a while ago, and she was mentioning about miracles happening to her, and she invited me to ask her what was those miracles, because I wanted to just butt in at the talk, but I waited, and she mentioned some things that was miracles in her life, and of service too, you know. So, you know, just to extend your arms out as being of service to people. Thanks.
I'm at when I'm at it. You know, sit down around here. So, I just want to thank God just for being at a retreat like this. Robert's my friend, spiritual brother.
he always do this type of thing. He want to go places. We went to New York before they bombed it, you know. But I guess I'm sitting there, you know, service work. When I first got in the program, I was in service work. You know, we always go to the meetings that, you know, that was really poorly maintained. Always went to the meetings that didn't really have a lot of attendance. I was working midnights and had to go to a meeting at a union hall where people ran in just for the meeting and left out. And I had all those positions. Me and a couple, maybe one or two other guys. But it did me a world of good. It probably didn't do the group a world, you know, at first, you know, not at first. But what I found out after me doing these groups that was poorly attended and things like that, and being there and being vulnerable, and, you know, not having this popular group to go to and be the big shot, people would come and they had more depth to them. And I met people. And now a couple of those meetings are thriving. They're giving big anniversaries. You know, I've been around like 13 years. They're giving big anniversaries. I'm no longer an active service working person. But these meetings, like we have a meeting that starts tonight at 7:30, and it has grown. And I think part of it is by me just being humble, going in and doing what I have to do, doing what I have to do for the right reason, having the coffee ready, having the literature out there, nobody in there, having to open the meeting up, reading the readings with nobody sitting there, maybe one or two people. And then half an hour later, 45 minutes, here come everybody piling up in there. But it, you know, after a while, it panned out, and people starting to come now. Then now they took over, and they're having big anniversaries on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. You know, and I don't have to be nowhere around. See, so I don't want to say I take credit for that or nothing like that, but I felt as like I was there. I had a little part in it, small but integral. Important part of it. The coffee making, that's not nothing that you thumb your nose at. People come in there wanting some coffee. And and so it was important to me. It got to the point, you know, and my sponsor, Joe Wells, he would always call me, and I can't mean to run in my mouth, you know. I wasn't afraid. I was afraid, but I was afraid not to say nothing. You know, y'all gave me permission to say something. And welcome me. I remember the first time, it's one guy here, big time DJ in Detroit, I call him that, and he let us into the a service, the business meeting afterwards. I thought I was so important. I said, we could come in? He said, yeah. And he hugged us. and me and my friend, we were so proud. He said, we hugged, and we was at the service meeting after the meeting. And we went to eat, and we was like, we was gonna be big. We gonna be big shots in here one day. You know, we were so proud. I'm telling you. But it took this type of, maybe he wasn't a big shot. He knew he wasn't a big shot, but it took him to extend his arms out and open up and say, well, they addicts too. You guys addicts too. What you mean? And we was like, yeah, we addicts. And we were so proud. You know what I mean? And that's the reason that I'm still here. You know. People doing service work and looking at that fear in my eyes. I remember somebody say that I saw the fear disappear from certain people's eyes, and now I figured out they was talking about me. I thought I was looking tough, you know, but I was really looking scared, you know. I went in prisons and did talks early on, and Ryan, the new prisons that they had built, you know, and a couple of guys are out, making way more money than I am.
Oh shit!
That was sitting in that prison on second degree murder and things like that. This one, and I didn't even know. He come up to me and hugged me. I was like, "Don't I know you?" They said, "Yeah, you went into prison and you was talking to him. He didn't want to just sit there and be quiet all the time. He got out of prison." That's the honest to God truth. You know, it's anonymity. You know, you don't want to bury no names and stuff like that. But he might tell a story one day. And a couple of them got out. And that, you know, I'm glad of that. And I had no idea. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, you know, I'm glad I'm going to a prison to talk or something like that, but getting in them gates start shutting and shit, and it's like, oh shit. You know. But I'm glad that somebody got something out of something I said. And I didn't even know nothing about it. I didn't go out and say, well, I gave them something. I didn't, you know what I mean? They actually got something, you know. So, and after that, I don't do a lot of service work now per se. They just like me showing up and getting honest. They say I bring humor to it and stuff like that. I'll be ready to cry. I'll be telling them my story. They be like, oh, Ed, you kill me. I'll be, man, I'm serious, But if that keep them coming, fine. Another aspect of service is our community. I got clean and I coached them. Baseball, football, and basketball. My little short behind, basketball. The kids was taller than me, because other people had to go to work different shifts, you know what I'm saying? But this program showed me how to do that, to be patient with them and to show up. I didn't know what to do. They told me I run a track play. I didn't even know, but I had to ask questions. I had to ask the kids, what the hell was that, So y'all taught me how to get humble by going to these meetings that were small and just trying to work them, you know what I mean? And keep them open. And dealing with the community. I had to deal with them. I would go all the way, I would go from one side of town of Detroit to the other to pick up two boys and bring them all the way back to the side that I live on, and then take them all the way back, and they little ungrateful asses talking about, you ain't gonna buy us McDonald's? And I'd be like, hell yeah, you know what I'm saying? But I felt the need that someone needed to be there for them, and I would have never had the love for them, or not unless y'all had the love and showed me what to do through the service work and stuff like that. I've worked with Dagna, but not so long. They argue too damn much for me. I used to just get up and argue for nothing. Just get up, God damn it, Thanks for sharing that one. Okay. Because that's just the way it used to sound, But y'all gave me a lot to work with, and through the service. Right, y'all gave me a lot to work with, honest to God. So I'm like my man now. I'm starting to talk crazy and shit now. I maybe need someone to sit my butt down. But if it wasn't for this program and the service and the love that you guys showed to me and let me just pray with y'all in one simple closing of a business meeting, I think that changed my life, to be honest. When that guy Ryan did that, say, come on in here, y'all can. I said, I'm not only an addict, I'm a proud addict. And I'm going to tell the world what addicts can do. You know what I mean? Oh, it was cool. But anyway, it was cool. And I ain't been nowhere since. I get mad at y'all. I tried to go on strike a couple of months ago. But it's miserable without y'all, Because you go to the job and tell them stuff like this, and be like, okay, Ed, the company psychiatrist will see you now. And that's not cool. You don't need that on our side. But anyway, thanks for letting me share.
Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm an addict. I'm at a different place in my recovery than a lot of people are, and I'll tell you, there's some people here with some double digits clean time. I can really tell, and they have an idea of service and a spirituality that I hope someday to have. I'll tell you. But where I am in my recovery is that the group that I belong to, my home group, was just about 3 or 4 addicts when I started there, and everything had to be done. And so I started doing a lot of it, and boy, I picked up that title of GSR, and I loved it. I really did. I wanted it, and I wanted to be king. And I'm very overly organized and very much into fix, manage, and control. And boy, that just played into the whole hand. So the business meetings were disasters at first. I mean, just disasters. And people would walk out, and I even walked out a couple of them, and I was chairing the damn thing. That's right. I was chairing the business meeting, and I'd walk out and come back in. And I've grown since then. I'm giving up the GSR position, and I'm taking a couple other positions actually, but the purposes really changed. To tell you the truth, I'm going to take a position in our home group that I don't want. I really don't want to do it. It's a lot of work, But we now have, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 addicts who are regular home group members. About 4 of them have checkbooks. So I'm going to take the treasurer's position because I'm somebody that can count money and actually get it back, and be responsible for it. It's a question of it's needed to be done. It's not that I necessarily want to do it, but it needs to be done. I heard several addicts talk about different things, and one of them mentioned once about how she was a service junkie, and I consider myself a service junkie. And I finally figured out what the definition of that is. That's when my service work takes up so much time that I neglect my step work. And that's what I really had to actually come up here and say. Because I can use that. I really can. With it. Just one reason that my 4th step has taken 4 months and haven't really gotten into it. It's because, boy, I have so many other things I have to do, I have to get to that meeting. I have to do the paperwork. I have to do this and that. And, my recovery has to come first. And it truly does. On the other hand, at all different levels that I've been to, I've seen within Narcotics Anonymous, there's a great need for people to do service work. And I often hear somebody say, well, how do we get people to do this? How do we get people to do this? And of course, the great answer is that sponsors should be telling their sponsees to do service work. I started extremely early, and I think it's great. I think it's one of the things that kept me clean. I truly do. I think it's one of the things that kept me clean. It taught me one of my very first lessons, which was how to keep a commitment. If I've said I'm going to do something, I have to do it, no matter if I don't want to do it or not. If I've gotten an hour and a half of sleep, but it's time for me to be someplace else, I have to get my ass out of bed and go there and do it. Service has given me so much. I just can't say enough about it. I try to get as many people out of town as possible and to travel as much as possible and to come to here to take the love from here back. And I talk about it all the time too, is that it's like that ball that Chris was talking about, that keeping that ball rolling. Narcotics Anonymous was handed down to us, and it's my responsibility to hand it on to the next addicts, because it saved my life, and it'll save other people's lives too. But it takes people to do the job that has to be done. Thanks.
I'm an addict named Maria.
Hey, Maria.
Hey, I want to thank God for being here again. It's just, I'm so tired though. And I was feeling bad and guilty. I'm like, listen to all them talking about the service and traditions. I don't know nothing about none of that shit. For real, I don't. The tradition, I learned a lot today, and I was listening to Robert when he got up here. I was like, and that's where I am. I do service still on a group level. I still make coffee and treasure in my home group. And I was sitting back there thinking, what type of service do you do now? I'm feeling guilty. What have you given back? But I still go into the treatment centers and carry the message the best I can, because a lot of those ladies that come in them doors are still me. Because I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about the traditions and a whole lot about this program either. I just know that if I keep coming and I keep listening to y'all, I learn a whole lot. It's amazing how much I thought I knew the first couple of years I was here. For real, I mean, I was one of them debatable people that, was elected a position in area service, and I couldn't take the arguing. I got a headache, and I was like, me of all people, much I like chaos. And And the only reason I found out I couldn't take it is because I didn't have anything to contribute. I didn't know what I was arguing about. I didn't know, like you know, I didn't know what the hell I was arguing about. It's like, that don't sound right. And then when they say, well, you know, Maria, look in your book. Read the tradition. Still didn't understand. So, you know, I ain't gonna say gracefully, I cowardly bowed out. It's like, okay, I don't want no parts of this. But I do still try to stay on the group level, because a lot of times, this is just my opinion, I think that I know I have an ego to go along with my disease, and I don't want for it to get out of order. And sometimes I still think, a lot of times we forget about the newcomer still being the most important person. And I try not to do that, because I don't, for some days I feel new. You know, like you were saying, man, without the hugs and the love, and I got that from y'all. I wasn't raised like that. And as a result of that, I keep coming around. Y'all kept hugging me and saying, we're going to love you, just keep coming. I was able to do service in my household, to go hug some of my family members. My daughter I had never hugged, and told her, I said, Dad, you go up in there and telling people, I love you, man. You know, go home and look at your daughter, but hi. You know, and y'all taught me how to take that home. And to me, that's a form of service. And not only that, since the last time I was here, I shared a lot of his touch on this, that my father was sick, well, he's passed since the last time I was here, but I was able to be of service to him. And that's from y'all. My dad wasn't the type of person that hug and say, I love you, but we was able to do that before he passed. And I said, you know what, that fellowship is all right with me. You know what I'm saying? And most of the time, if I stay out the judgmental mode, all is good with me. You know, and I be wanting to justify that by saying, well, I got all these strikes against me. I'm an addict. I'm a female. We like to talk about people. You know, but most of the time I find when I say something about a person, I really be talking about me. Because most of the people I talk about, I'm envious and jealous of. Or I wouldn't waste my time worried about talking about them. You know, so I need to start maybe doing some more service work. I don't know. I'm not going to lie and say, you know, that it's really something that I want to do. Because just coming here and being in here the last hour, I'm starting to see I need to do a whole lot more work on me. You know, and sitting here, and I'm like, you were sitting here with the tradition and going, I was like, that's a damn shame. You've been here all this time, don't even know the tradition. You know what I'm saying? I can't recite them, and I don't really know what they mean, and that's just being honest. I said, now how dare you get up there and share on something your ass don't know about. But I have been one way since I've been here, and I'm going to stay that way, and that's an honest person to come up here and tell you, I don't know what the hell y'all talking about. When it comes to them traditions and all that service, and I have been to service meeting and seen some icons in Detroit with they gator shoes and stand on the table and holler and cuss and da-da-da-da-da. But somebody in the room just made some clarity to that today. It's like, that person has to love Narcotics Anonymous, regardless of how they act, talk, and, you know, carry themselves or whatever, because I'm still going to stay at the group level. I'm still going to stay where I'm at, because it's what I know. It's what I do best. I love going to treatment centers and letting them ladies know this is a better way of life. I love that part, because I'm not too far drawn from where they're at still. You know what I'm saying? I love to let them know it's going to be all right. We don't have to do this no more, you know. Believe it or not, you don't have to sell your ass no more. Because the day was when I was in the treatment center, I didn't believe that there was another way of life. Lady came and gave a talk and said she had 4 years clean. I just knew she was lying. I couldn't wait till she got through talking, so I can go and ask her, you ain't drunk a beer? Nothing. You can tell me the truth. I ain't gonna tell you. You know what I'm saying? I just couldn't believe that, you know. And I remember sitting in that treatment center and would like pray that people would come in and keep telling us that. You know what I'm saying? Even after you get out of here, you still don't have to use. So that's what I do. I still go to treatment centers, still tell the girls that no matter what, we don't have to use. And that is a great freedom. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Maria. I didn't come to share. I came to close the meeting. We can form a circle.